When you travel abroad, do you take an active interest in the travel insurance policy that you buy, or do you passively accept the cover that comes to you along with your tickets? The holiday season is round the corner, and thousands will head abroad in the next few months. To understand the nuances of purchasing a travel insurance policy, we spoke to Mr. Vivek Chaturvedi, Chief Marketing Officer, Digit Insurance. Do watch this interview if you want to learn about how to get this very important purchase just right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chaturvedi, and welcome to our show.
Good afternoon, Sanjay.
So, the holiday season is round the corner, and a lot of people will be flying abroad to have a good time. Most people don't really pay as much heed to purchasing a travel insurance policy as they should. So I thought this was a good time to discuss with you in detail how to go about purchasing this very important policy. My first question to you is it compulsory to buy a travel insurance policy when you're going abroad?
Sanjay, it depends. For most of the countries, it is not compulsory. However, if somebody is traveling to European countries, Schengen countries, then for visa requirement, travel insurance is compulsory. A minimum visa of around 30,000 euro is required, which covers medical expenses, including any emergency evacuations or urgent medical attention is required. So, except barring Schengen and European countries, rest of the countries, it's not compulsory. However, like with all insurance, my view is it is essential to check the requirement of the country you are planning and also go for a visa. It does not cost much.
So why should one buy travel insurance? Could you elaborate on this aspect?
See, when somebody thinks about travel insurance, people don't think what all travel insurance covers. Now, when somebody is planning a international journey, usually the person would be out from starting from a 7 days to maybe 30 days or 60 days. There a lot of things can go wrong. Starting with the travel insurance just does not cover, say, or just is not required only for visa requirement. It just does not cover any medical emergency. It covers a lot of host of things. So typically, if somebody is planning a international trip, the planning starts maybe 3 months in advance, sometimes in 6 months in advance. A lot can go wrong before the trip starts. So say if a traveling companion is hospitalized, or there is an unfortunate death in the immediate family members, a travel insurance also covers for that. So it comes under trip cancellation, which is one of the benefits in travel insurance. Now, when the journey starts, by the time person reaches a destination, there could be a delay in the flight. The luggage or the baggage that the person is taking, it can be lost. It can get delayed. If somebody has a connecting flight, so if one flight is delayed, it may happen that the connecting flight, the person misses the connecting flight. So a missed connection is also covered. So a host of coverages are covered in travel insurance when before the person has actually landed at the destination. Once the person lands there could be a medical emergency. There could be a emergency where somebody needs to show to say a general physician, which is you call a OPD emergency. That is also covered. Usually when we are outside, the only document that basically tells us that we are Indian and we have visa is basically our passport. Now that passport one needs to carry wherever the person is going. Now, in case if there is a if there is a loss of passport, that is also covered. When somebody is in a foreign country, a liability can arise. In case there is a liability, even the bail bond is also covered in travel insurance. So a lot of things are covered under travel insurance. However, it does not cost much. So typically, if somebody is going to say Singapore or somebody is going to an Asian country, a person may spend maybe 1 lakh or 2 lakh rupees from a travel perspective. The insurance for all that would cost less than 1,000 rupees. So the price is also not that big. There is a less awareness where people think travel insurance and people think, okay, I am fit and fine, nothing will happen to me. But there are other things can go wrong. Sometimes we have seen cases where somebody is carrying all the cash in one bag or all the money in one bag, foreign currency in one bag, and then the bag is stolen. So those kind of instances are also covered by travel. The biggest and the most important thing is medical, because in international countries, the cost of hospitalization is quite high. A thing in India which may cost maybe 30,000, 40,000 rupees, which is maybe a day or 2 days of hospitalization. In a country like European country, European or a US or something, the cost may go to around 10 lakh, 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs also. So that's how the travel insurance becomes important, and everybody who is traveling ideally should buy a travel insurance.
So, a very important aspect of purchasing travel insurance is the sum insured. What are some of the key factors you should take into consideration when deciding how much sum insured you go for?
Sure. So if somebody is traveling in Asian countries, typically a 50,000 US dollar sum insured is sufficient. The biggest factor to decide that is the what is the medical cost in that country. Now, for a lay person, it is very difficult to calculate that. So what we basically recommend is, for most of the countries in the world, $100,000 is sufficient. Actually, if somebody moves from a $50,000 sum insured to a $100,000 sum insured, the price difference is not that much. The price increases by maybe 20%. And when somebody is spending maybe 3 lakhs, 4 lakh rupees, the price I'm talking about is 800 rupees becoming 1,000 rupees. So it is immaterial in terms of price, where somebody may be spending more time in having one-time lunch. If somebody is traveling to US, and US and Canada are very expensive, there a higher sum insured is recommended. So if somebody is going to US, typically a $200,000 or $250,000 is also something which somebody can opt for. However, if because the pricing difference is not that much, $100,000 is sufficient for any country that the person is traveling.
So $250,000 for US. How is Canada? Is Canada also very expensive?
So what happens in India is that typically the pricing of travel insurance is done by regions. So there is a product will cover, say, worldwide, which will include US and Canada. Then there is rest of India excluding US, Canada. So typically, while Canada is not that expensive, however, when the pricing is done, Canada and US are clubbed together.
What are some of the major mishaps that can have a big financial impact on a person traveling abroad?
Sure. So one is financial and another is convenience. So the biggest financial impact that can happen is actually a medical emergency. So I will give you my example. I think I traveled around in 2016, 2017 to Thailand, and I had a 3-year-old kid, and he basically, while just running, banged his head, and he was hospitalized for a single night. Now, for a single night, the cost of hospitalization was around 1.2 lakhs. Because it was a head injury, so they did like all the tests and everything, plus they put him in observation and everything. Now, so medical expenses can be the most financially impactful. However, sometimes and what we see is, like, if you see all the coverages that I talked about, medical expenses comes under top 3 in terms of number of claims also. So it's not that people who are traveling, they are not getting sick, they are not getting admitted. It is the other thing that happens from a financial burden perspective is, say, in case if there is a death of a person, then then somebody may need to travel there to get the mortal remains. So that can also be a decently expensive part in this. Sometimes what happens, if say a companion is fell sick and one needs to extend the trip, so travel insurance covers that piece also. So multiple things can happen, but the biggest thing that one needs to ensure is the health, because that is expensive. The rest other things are inconvenience, like if somebody loses their bag. So maybe if somebody goes and somebody has to buy maybe 6 days of clothes plus other things, the financial impact would not be that much. Similarly, if there is a delay in airline or a missed connection, there is a financial impact, but it is not something which is going to bankrupt someone. However, the medical expenses is one thing which can go as large as can be. And specifically, say, we have seen cases where somebody got a heart attack in US, and in US, somebody getting a heart attack and getting a bypass done is one of the most expensive thing. So the claims can be what we basically say severity. In travel insurance, severity is very high, frequency is less. and one needs to basically protect from the medical expenses part. And when somebody is choosing the product also, one needs to think, one is sum insured, which you rightly asked. However, one also needs to ask wherever they are buying. If they are buying online, they are buying from an aggregator, they are buying from an agent or anybody else or a travel aggregator, they need to ask, is there some limits on my sum insured, especially the medical sum insured. Rest all the things are maybe, one will get 5,000 rupees, or maybe one will get 4,000 rupees, like 1,000 rupees I have to pay from my pocket. That's fine. However, medical expenses, uh, asking for limits is very important, and that hurts the most. If I have to talk about from an inconvenience part, what we have seen, the maximum number of claims happens in trip cancellation. Trip cancellation is basically, as I was saying, that if something happens to the companion or something happens to you because of which the person can't travel, so that is covered. Delaying checked-in baggage happens a lot. uh, After that, the common carrier delay, which is basically the airline flies late, that is a lot. And misconnections, these are the top four, besides the medical emergencies.
Now, what about personal liability cover? Like, suppose somebody gets arrested for some reason or the other, and then you have to furnish a bond. Can that
Yes.
kind of a thing have a big financial impact?
We have seen claims in that, like if I have to say, in like the frequency is very less, but we have still seen claims coming up for personal liability and bail bond. Typically, depending upon the sum insured the person is taken, there is a sublimit to the personal bond. So if usually a personal bond is covered for $20,000, which basically takes care of the liability bond, and the claims have come. So it's not a cover where we have never seen a claim. The frequency is less. It will be, I would say, maybe uh, top 15 covers which are being used. However, whenever this happens, there could be a decent amount of financial liability.
So even for the personal liability cover, the sum insured should be considerable.
Yes,
Okay. We'll talk about coverage of pre-existing ailments next. What should one
sure.
really know about how to get yourself covered for pre-existing ailments? Uh, because a lot
So
of people could be 40 and above, and they could have some ailments or the other. Do policies cover pre-existing ailments?
yeah, so this is something which a person, when they are buying, they have to look into that. Typically in India, pre-existing illnesses are covered with a limit. So, and there it varies insurer to insurer. Say, some insurers have a limit which is fixed, where they cover pre-existing for only $1,500. Some insurers have it linked to the sum insured, which may be at say 10% of sum insured. So for a normal somebody who is taking a $200,000 cover, the pre-existing will be covered maybe till maybe 10% of that, which is $20,000, or it could be 10% of the base sum insured with a max cap of $10,000. So with somebody who has a pre-existing and who feels that because of pre-existing something can happen, the person should choose plan where the maximum pre-existing is covered.
Can you pay extra premium and get these kind of limits removed? Is that possible?
Yes, you can. Yes. So a lot of insurers will have. So basically, what happens in India, by default, because most of Indians, when they are thinking of buying travel insurance, they go for a lowest premium product available. So usually they think, okay, if something is available for 600 rupees, why pay maybe 2,000 rupees? So they end up choosing a 600 product. So all the insurers usually have a base product which has a lot of limits, and that is a product which is by default being sold in India. However, ideally, when somebody is going abroad, the person should take, it's better to take a comprehensive product. And most of the insurers have a product which is a premium product. The premium difference, maybe a 600 will become 1,500 or 2,000 rupees, but it is not that much where like affordability will become a concern.
Now, if a policy has a waiting period or a co-payment requirement for a pre-existing cover, what is the advice to the buyer there? What should one do?
So in travel, copay is there. Travel, you don't have pre-existing as a coverage or a pre-existing waiting period, because travel typically is now. and you know that it is for maybe 10 days, 15 days, 30 days, maybe 60 days, maybe 90 days. Parents are traveling, they will travel for at max 180 days, which is 6 months. So travel products don't come with waiting periods. That's waiting period concept is predominantly for health products. However, copay is there. Copay is fine as long as, say, if somebody is giving a pre-existing cover with a 10% copay or a 15% copay also, that is a far better cover versus going for a product where either a pre-existing is not covered, or a worst option where like nothing is covered because somebody is not taking insurance. What a copay does, it it uh, it ensures that somebody is not misusing the coverages, and that is the way where basically somebody also have a skin in game. So say if somebody has a small flu, the person is not utilizing the health insurance or travel insurance. So that is the usage of copay, where which basically if there is some emergency, then only the customer is going. The customer is just not going because he's in a foreign country and he wants to experience the the healthcare services. So that is the role of copay. Uh, a 10% copay is fine. Most of the coverages in travel insurance usually comes with fixed limit also. So in India, people are not like in most of the insurers, even the customers are not buying copay based products. What people buy is, say, in a medical this thing coverage, there will be a fixed deductible $100. So whatever is the say the bill, the first $100 is paid by the customer. Similarly, for everything, there will be some kind of fixed limit, which is predominantly being sold in India, where there is this thing. But copay also makes sense, specifically when elderlies are traveling outside and when they travel for a long period, which is typically 180 days, and especially they are going to US and Europe. That time, the premiums can be very high. So taking a product with 5% copay or a 10% copay makes sense.
What are some of the key exclusions that are there in travel insurance policies today, which one should be aware of?
So I think the biggest exclusion which happens, and one can look into it if somebody already has a pre-existing illness, is whether pre-existing is covered or not. So that we talked about, and I think one of the biggest thing that is there. Second thing that happens is a lot of Indians, when they are traveling, they are going for sports activity or adventure sports activity. So if somebody goes to New Zealand and they will do a bungee jumping, they will do a skydiving. So people also travel outside to learn how to do scuba, get a certification in scuba. So all that comes under adventure activities. Here, what we do as Digit in our product, we understand that every Indian who is traveling will do some kind of adventure activity. Like even if I am traveling to any country, there will be something. Even snorkeling, I would want to do, or I would want to take a bike in Thailand and I just want to roam around there. So some of these are classified as adventure activities, but it is so common that customer does not realizes that it is an adventure activity. So what we do in our product is that activities which typically are done by commonly by people who are traveling, like the activities which basically start and end in one day. So somebody goes to, say, New Zealand, does a bungee, which somebody goes there, stands in line, goes for a bungee, comes back. So some of those things we cover by default. Um, and if somebody is going for, say, a professional certification for scuba, where the entire trip is for adventure sports, or somebody is traveling, say, somebody is traveling to Nepal to climb Everest. Now, those activities or that trip is planned entirely as an adventure sports. So for that, there is a separate add-on. Other insurers also have a separate add-on which the customer can choose. However, in our product, what we did, and we did this because we thought that in India, customer does not understand that going into sea is an adventure activity, or taking a bike in somewhere is adventure, can be an adventure activity. So some of the common things we cover by default. Our definition is that one day adventure activities we cover, where the activity starts on same day and ends on same day. But that is also something one needs to understand, that if somebody is taking any insurer or any insurance, if they plan to do any activity, they should just read whether this activity is covered under adventure activity or comes under adventure activity or not. So that is another thing. One, there is a standard exclusion where if something happens when somebody is under the influence of alcohol or drugs, so insurance don't cover. So that is again one thing, one should not do it. Uh, Typically, if there are all insurers have a list of countries where the travel insurance is not valid. So say right now there is a war going on between Russia and Ukraine. So if somebody deliberately wants to go to Ukraine or Russia, Russia is still covered, but Ukraine, but so that part may not be covered. So these are the major exclusions usually in a travel product.
So, all travel insurance products come with sublimits. What does one do about them? Does one accept the sublimits passively, or does one look at getting the sublimits removed, especially from the important covers? How does one tackle this whole aspect of sublimits?
So not all products come with sublimits. What one needs to do it requires some bit of research where somebody can see what are the sublimits are. So if the sublimit is that say for a emergency medical treatment, person is taking 200,000 or $250,000 cover, and there is a deductible of $100, then it is fine. So however, if there are limits where it is restricted in terms of while a person is taking $250,000 cover, however, one instance the coverage will be only for $10,000, then there is a concern. So what one needs to do is, or when the person is buying, they will also get a brochure of the insurer, and the brochure typically mentions all sublimits. So it's good to just read once for especially for the medical. Rest all the things, if there is a sublimit, it is fine. So if say there is a loss of passport and a person needs to pay $50, that's fine. But for medical, where the most amount of financial impact can happen, it's good to check the sublimits. There are products which are without any sublimits. There are products which are very which have a sublimits where a person can only claim $10,000 per instance of hospitalization. So one needs to just read the document once before purchasing the product.
So we have discussed adventure sports. I'd like, I'd only like to ask: do all travel insurance policies offer adventure sports cover, or do you have to buy it sometimes as a rider? You have to ask for it
So for
separately.
most of the plans, adventure sports is an add-on. Uh, One needs to add that add-on in the policy. So they need to, wherever they are buying, whichever platform they are buying, they will have an option to add the add-on. Uh, However, some companies would maybe covering basic adventure sports as the default coverage. So as I talked about Digit, we cover 1 day of adventure sports as a default in our product that we sell.
Now, there's something called time excess. What does this term mean, and what is its implication for travelers?
Yeah. Basically, as I said, we also want the customer to have some skin in the game. So that is where the time access or deductible comes in. So say there is a carrier delay or a airplane delay. At what point the claim will be admissible? Like what should be the delay in the starting of the flight. So for us, we basically say we will cover delay starting from 4 hours onwards. So if the flight is delayed by more than 4 hours, there is a coverage which is called common carrier delay, and that coverage mentions the amount also. That amount will be paid to the customer. Yeah, other company may have a 6 hour delay. After that, the coverage will start, or some may have 12. After 12 hours, the coverage will start. Similarly, there could be a missed connection. Now, missed connection can happen that say if I book a flight from here till Singapore, and from Singapore I'm flying to Australia, and I book a flight where my flight lands in Singapore at 2 p.m. and the Australia flight leaves at 2:30 p.m. Now, there the insurer will not cover a missed connection because there will be a time access of at least 3 hours between the connecting flights. Because here, like while booking as a user, I know that I will not be able to catch up this flight within half an hour. So this is also comes under time access. That for missed connection, it should be minimum 3 hours difference between should be there between the landing flight and the next departing flight. So most of the coverages, there is some share, either time or price, which the customer has to pay. That is basically time access or deductible. It could be after some time it will be eligible, the claim will be eligible, or it could be some amount of money, like we talked about bail bond. So say we may be covering a bail bond of $20,000 or up to $20,000, but we will have a excess time access slash deductible of say $25. So if the cost of bail bond is $10,000, $25 is paid by the customer, and remaining amount is paid by the insurer.
Now, trip delays, cancellation, or extension. Is there anything one needs to look for? Any kind of feature that one needs to look for in a travel insurance policy vis-a-vis these covers?
See, so for trip cancellation, my suggestion would be to look for a policy which gives maximum sum insured. Now, most of the time, the sum insured in a trip cancellation policy may be around $1,000. So $1,000 is equivalent to maybe 80,000 rupees. Now, if somebody has planned, say, a European trip or a US trip, and there is a cancellation, the person may have spent more money than what the person will get. So if any other plan somebody is getting maybe $2,000 for trip cancellation or $5,000 for trip cancellation, so there somebody can maximize. In terms of trip extension, the guidelines are there. Most of the insurer have the same guidelines, where one needs to inform the insurer 7 days before the trip ends that the person will be extending the trip and the reason for that. And along with that, the person also has to basically share a good health declaration that nothing has happened because of which he or she is extending the coverage. So trip extension is more or less common. Cancellation maximize the sum insured, because uh, so there will be some refundable booking that the person would have taken. However, still, if the flight tickets are non-refundable, there are some hotel bookings which are non-refundable. Maybe $1,000 may not be sufficient as a trip cancellation amount.
Now, a lot of people buy travel insurance policies from agents. Uh,
So,
this is a very common thing. People just buy along with their tickets, they get the insurance cover and they accept it passively. What is your view in this regard? Should people go for travel insurance policies from agents?
So here, no, my view is that people just need to be informed. So they can buy from any channel, either travel agents, online channels. There are other channel agents also. So buying from any platform is not a concern. What one needs to be aware is that what you also mentioned is the limits part. And a lot of the time, the customer does not ask. Customer just takes the product whatever is recommended. There the customer should basically ask, and sometimes take it on email also, like, is there any limits in the product, and that the customer should be aware. And specifically, as we talked about, medical expenses are the most expensive. So in medical expenses, what is the limit? That is a question which a customer should ask. If they are buying it from a partner, it's better to ask and get it on over an email also. If they are buying from an online platform, they should read it on the online platform in case if there is a limit or not. Because in India, there are plans which have no limit, where if somebody is buying a $50,000 or $100,000, the same amount is covered. However, there are other plans also where if somebody buys a $50,000 or maybe $100,000, but after a certain age, there could be a limit. So there are plans which basically specify that if somebody's age is more than 56, so if then whether the person buy a $50,000 or $100,000, there will be a limit on the per instance basis, or there will be a limit in terms of ICU charges, room rent charges, surgery charges, which is also required, because what happens is as the age goes up, the frequency of a medical emergency also goes up, and due to which the affordability becomes a problem. So while there are plans available without any limit, but the person may think that the cost of that plan is too high, while the probability of somebody getting hospitalized is less. So it's okay to choose a plan with limits. However, one should be aware what the product the person is taking. Because if you know about it, then in case if there is an emergency also, you will go to a hospital where those limits can be managed. You will not go to the one of the most fanciest hospitals and then discover that there is, say, a limit on ICU where the insurer will pay maybe $3,000 per day. or maybe $2,000 per day only. So that is a bit of a awareness challenge. I understand insurance is bit it is bit complicated, so understanding is a problem. So just asking whoever you are buying the product, just asking a simple question whether there is a limit or a sublimit on the medical expenses is one question one should ask. And if they are buying it from a partner, they should take it on an email also, that in terms of whatever the sublimits are.
I have finished with my questions, Mr. Chaturvedi. Would you have any final words of advice for customers?
See, so my final advice would be that, like, irrespective of whether the product has limit, no limit, one should take travel insurance. The way the person should see it is that if next 20 years, 30 years, the person will travel maybe 5 times or 6 times, the premium, like one time of hospitalization will offset maybe 10 trips, 10 international trips. And that has been my learning also, that if there is one instance of hospitalization, it actually covers the next 10 trips of insurance premium and more than that. So buying insurance is important, specifically if somebody is going to Europe, and wherever the person is going, the visas also have some kind of limits and some kind of requirements. So before applying for a visa, they should also check with the travel agent or online whether there is a specific requirement from a travel insurance perspective. Like as I told you earlier, also Shenzhen has a very clearly defined that 30,000 dollar 30,000 euros minimum sum insured should be there, and Shenzhen also does not allow any limits. So they also have very clear thing that $30,000 should be can be utilized by the person in one instance. Insurer cannot have that, per hospitalization there will be a $5,000 euro limit or a 10,000 euro limit or something like that. So they are very clear, and sometimes visa can also be rejected if travel insurance is not taken. However, irrespective of whether travel insurance is required or not required, for most of the Asian countries, the cost of travel insurance would be like buying a Domino's pizza. For European countries, it will be slightly more. So it does not cost much, and it covers a lot of things. It covers, it is not only just the medical expenses. It's just, and we are also seeing like passport being stolen is actually a common thing. And then the travel insurance actually covers the cost of the document that you require in a foreign country. But when you come back in India and you apply for the passport, that cost is also covered by the travel insurance. So a lot of things is covered in travel insurance, like a holistic coverages, and the premium is not much. So just buy it without thinking too much.
Thank you, Mr. Chaturvedi, for explaining this product in such great detail. I'm sure a lot of people who will be traveling abroad this holiday season will gain immensely from what you have shared with us. Thanks a lot and have a good day.
Thanks, Sanjay. Same to you. Thanks.
Goodbye.